Ahoy, Minnetonka. I'm David Law, Superintendent of Minnetonka Schools. Thank you for joining us for this episode of our district podcast, Ahoy, Minnetonka. One of 3 ongoing goals that our school board has set for the district is excellence in leadership and organizational support. A key action step outlined within that goal is to determine whether our school facilities meet the needs of our current and future students. Last spring, an important group of stakeholders began to examine that question. That group is the Facilities Study Task Force. And joining me today are one of the co-facilitators of the task force, Cari Lindberg, and one of the task force members, Jennie Przybilla. Ladies, welcome. Please take a moment to explain your connection to the district and tell us your background.
I'm Jennie Przybilla, and I have 3 kids in the district. I've got a junior, an 8th grader, and a 6th grader. And we have been with the district since the 16-year-old was 2, so I've been around for a little while. And we really are involved in the PTA, and I've been both with Scenic Heights and MME, and just enjoy being part of the community.
Well, thanks for your service to those organizations. It takes a community to support our schools. We appreciate it. Cari?
Yeah, I'm Cari Lindberg. I am a parent of 3 kids in the district, 2 that are now in college, and I have a freshman at the high school. All of my kids went through Groveland and MME, and I was very involved in the PTO at Groveland, ran the Scholastic Book Fair, was on various PTO committees, and also served on 2 booster clubs at the high school. And I have been the Minnetonka Family Collaborative Coordinator for the last 10 years.
Well, we might come back and do another podcast about that. For today, we'll talk about the Facilities Task Force. Cari, you're the co-facilitator with Paul Bourgeois. What was your background that made you interested in this opportunity and that makes you feel confident that you're the right facilitator?
Sure. So I have been the Minnetonka Family Collaborative Coordinator for 10 years, and the MFC is an association of community partners that works to improve the well-being of kids and families in our district. We meet about 5 times a year, and I facilitate those meetings. But my background is really in city administration. I've spent the good portion of my career leading various boards and commissions for the last 20 years. So I was excited about this opportunity, and it's been a great group to work with.
Cari, what is this task force charged with?
So the Facility Study Task Force was charged with assessing all of the district buildings and making recommendations about how to best support our students from now into the future. This task force was put together last spring. We solicited applications from the community on our district website, and we received a large number of applicants from a wide variety of different areas of the community, and ended up with a very diverse group of 27 individuals who have been just great to work with.
A chance to give back locally to our school system. Great. So the Facility Task Force meetings, when did that start? How long has it been going? Jennie, what's your...
Started last spring, right after spring break last year, and we have now visited every school in the district, including MCEC and the District Service Center. And it's been really an eye-opening experience to see how much the district excels in some areas where we need work.
Yeah. I'm going to back up a little bit. That's a big commitment. What made you as a parent put your name in to be part of this process?
Well, as I said, I've been in the district for over 11 years now, and my kids are involved in sports and in theater and in choir. They were navigators. And so for me, that was a big driver for why we entered into the district. And so I don't want to see those programs miss out because things are changing and we have to make adjustments around the district. And so for me, it was really important to see what we need to do to continue those and to keep adding things that will allow us to expand what the district offers. And they're just, for example, I know MME needs some work, and so for me that was a big thing, being in the middle of MME right now. And so I actually had a personal conversation with Pete Dimmitt about kind of what he was looking for, and that was part of why I applied to join the task force.
Thank you. Thanks for being part of it. And it's a big commitment for our community members. Cari, what's a typical agenda for a task force meeting?
Sure. So as Jennie mentioned, we have visited every single elementary school, the middle schools, and the high school twice, and also toured the District Service Center. And last night had our final meeting and got to tour the Vanmo building as well. So for a typical meeting, the 27 task force members will come together. They'll hear presentations from Paul Bourgeois, our finance director, about the history of the buildings. They'll also hear from the district principal for the building and hear input from staff through a staff survey, and also the principal's ideas about the needs for the buildings. Then we'll conclude with a tour and then end the meetings with a prioritization exercise talking about the needs in each of the buildings. There's opportunity for discussion at the end, but our final meeting of the year will be in a few weeks, and that's when we'll come together and make our final recommendations for the school board.
Jennie, as you have toured buildings, have you had the chance to see parts of the district you haven't seen before?
For sure. I had never been in over half of the schools, actually. I was surprised. I've been in gyms in some of them because of athletics, but I don't think I had ever been inside of Deep Haven or Groveland, and so it was interesting to see how those compare to Scenic. That's where I lived all other times, and so the buildings are wonderful buildings. Like, I'm amazed. One of the things Paul told us about was the buildings used to just be brick walls, and students would not care for the buildings as much, and there was garbage on the floor and people drew on the walls, and he came up with a program to put actual travertine tiles on the walls, and that has been done throughout the district. And just that little thing, seeing comparison pictures from what that was to what it did to change what the hallways look like, it opened them up, it made them look bigger, and he said students started to take care of the buildings and started to take pride in where they were. And it was little things that I didn't ever think of before, that going through all the schools, you notice that now.
Right.
Paul was a wealth of information about the history of the buildings, showing maps and aerial views of the buildings from when they were first constructed to date. So, and he has a story for every building. Yeah.
He has intimate knowledge.
Yes, yes.
Every renovated space and what hasn't been renovated, for sure. Cari, any surprises from you or ahas as you traveled through the district?
Well, so like Jennie, I'd only been in a handful of the elementary schools, so I was struck with how different each of the buildings are. But one common theme among all of the principals was just the pride that they showed in their buildings and the way they've utilized the space that they have. One thing that I learned about Kurt Carpenter, our principal at Clear Springs, do you know that he mows the courtyard himself willingly? It's not like anyone is forcing him to, but just because he has such pride in that space, and so he does that on the weekends. I thought that was amazing. Yeah.
Fascinating. Well, one of the goals of the district is that it is community driven and not district driven. Has your perception been that you've had a good voice in the process?
Yes, it has been. The people that are represented in the group are from all walks of life. We have parents, we have former architects, we have city planners, we have alumni, all sorts of people that have had some sort of stake in the district, and everybody has a little bit of a different opinion. And so it's been really good to be able to say, okay, I don't necessarily agree with you, this is what I think, or, oh, I didn't even think about it in that way. And I think people really have had good conversations about, oh yeah, that wasn't something I was thinking about. And so I think that's been a really positive thing for the group.
We do have a real cross-section of the community that's represented on this task force. We have parents at every level of the district, with preschoolers, elementary schoolers, middle schoolers, high schoolers. We have business owners, we have city staff, former school board member. So I really do feel like we have a wide variety of interests, and that's going to help with the ultimate decision making.
One of the things that I know we were intentional about is trying to be considerate of unique populations within our system. Do you think that there's been a chance to consider like special education in the process or unique programming?
Absolutely. We've heard from Christine Breen, our executive director of special ed, We've heard from Scott Gerlicher, our Director of Safety. We definitely have made sure that the task force has heard from the people who are the experts in their field, so really trying to cover all of our bases.
Great. Well, are there some themes after all of these school visits?
Definitely. The biggest one we found is the small, flexible space, both for students and staff. So areas that they're looking for either for breakout groups with the students or just small areas for staff to work together during their prep time or anything like that. Like Cari said, the principals have done an amazing job of utilizing the space that they have. And at this point, they just, because things that we're doing have evolved, the way the work in the classroom has changed. And so now we're looking at how do we accommodate some of those changes.
And some of those changes may be as simple as new furniture or removing lockers that aren't being used and placing furniture in its space. But I really think that one of the main themes that we've heard is space that can be used for a variety of uses, whether it's individual one-on-one sessions, staff meetings, large and small group spaces have been discussed during this process.
Do you look outside the building too? Have you had conversations about, I've heard certainly from community members about how long it takes to drop off my student, or we could use additional space for some community activity outside the facilities. Have you had those conversations?
We have. One of the biggest constraints that we're dealing with in almost all of the buildings is real estate. And so one of the big discussions we've had is moving forward, looking at investing in either additional real estate or trying to find ways to change how things are laid out to give us a better organization of what exists. And part of it is, what we've learned is that we really have maximized the use of the space that we have, and they've done a really good job of working with the city planners and working with the architects to, at this point with what we have, make it as efficient as it is.
We've also looked at so many different courtyards. I didn't realize that all of these buildings had courtyards, and the variety of uses in each building is very different. Looking at some of them, would that be a space that we could expand into, but then you lose natural light? There's just been a lot of great discussion about how best to utilize that outdoor space at every school.
Did you feel like when you went into it, you were hampered by a limited dollar amount that you could consider, or do you feel like you were able to design? How did finances play into the process?
Sure, I feel like we are thinking about the finances, but really this group has been going in with an open mind, trying to hear from the principals and from the staff about what is going to be the most important thing to maximize the space for our current students now and into the future. So although finances plays a piece of it, this really has been, if money were no object, what would we want, what would be nice to have, and what do we need?
How about community perspective? Have there been any efforts to figure out what parents are thinking about, or the larger community? Has that factored into this?
So there was a guardrail survey done earlier this summer to get an idea about what the community would be interested in terms of additions to our buildings. So there has been some community input. We also did a district-wide staff survey so that we would hear from all the teachers in all of the buildings and the staff.
So what's next? You've done all this work, you've got one meeting left. When will the whole community know the fruit of your work?
So we have one final discussion meeting, maybe two, but we have one on the books right now, and we're hoping to have a final report to the school board sometime in December.
Okay. And what will that look like? Detailed plans for each building? Is that the work product?
So our finance director, Paul Bourgeois, is working with an architect to put together some plans if the school board is interested in moving forward with different projects. But really the facilities task force will be prioritizing the list of needs and ideas that they've heard over the last 9 months and putting forth a recommendation. And whether or not the school board wants to do a small amount of the work or all of the work, the plan is there for whenever they decide to put it into place.
Okay. So, and you're pretty confident that the plan going forward will be the voice of the work group?
I do. I think so. Like Cari said, at the end of each meeting, we kind of laid out what we thought, based on the principal and the teacher recommendations, the top things they were looking for was. And then each of us would kind of vote on which one we thought was the top priority, and then 2 and 3. And so Cari has all of that information compiled. So when we come together for the final meeting, we have an idea of really what the big projects are that we really feel are needs, not just wants. And then the nice thing was we have a whole list of wants that aren't necessarily at the top of the list, but definitely something we've had conversations about. No, we don't necessarily need a large funding for that. That's something we can make happen with XYZ dollars instead. And so I think the most important part has been that we've had a large number of the force at each of the meetings, and everybody, I feel like, really has shown interest in what's going on and really thought about what they thought would be the best ideas.
I do think we have so many different interests on this task force. We definitely have the families, or the people that are interested in sports, the people that are interested in theater, the people who are more focused on the academics, and it's given us a chance to look into all of the different worlds, especially at the high school, because I know there were parts of the high school that I had never stepped foot into, and I think that was probably the case for a lot of the people on the task force. So I think if individuals came into the task force thinking, this is the one thing I really want us to focus on, it opened their eyes to all of the different needs in the district and gave them a new perspective.
Jennie, you referenced at every building you've had presentations. Are those available for the public?
They are, actually. All of the presentations are available on the district website. If you just search Facilities Study Task Force, then you can go out and find every presentation that has been given to us, both from Paul Bourgeois as well as each of the principals in the district.
Will the final report be available to everyone in the public?
Absolutely.
Good. So as we're wrapping up, would you do it again?
Definitely.
Yes.
And you'd facilitate again?
Absolutely. It's been a great process.
Well, my goal as a superintendent is that you can't have a committee of 2,000. So 30 people who represent the breadth of our community, really looking at what are the needs of our students and making recommendations back to us, gives me confidence that we have something that our community should be proud of. And then it's up to the community and the board to make those decisions about how this plays out. But it's really been great having you two serve in this capacity and take some time to talk to our community about this process. Because over the next 6 months or a year, people may be very interested in understanding, where did all of this come from, and did they consider what my school needs? It'll be good to know that every school was walked through, presented about, staff surveyed. That's been great. Thank you both for taking a little bit of time to visit with us and with the community about our Facilities Study Task Force. And thank you for joining us for this episode of our podcast, Ahoy, Minnetonka, as we've talked about our Facilities Study Task Force. Join us again as we talk about other hot topics in the community. Have a great day.